I told y'all I'd do better this month. It is the beginning of April, not the middle, not the end, and I'm coming to you all with 25 plus crops to plant in your Zone 9 garden. My name is Drea, which I realize I never tell y'all my name, and y'all are probably like, Hopple, who this woman? And as always, I'll share tips for each crop to help set you up for success, like whether you should direct sow, transplants, how to amend the soil, fertilizing, and whatever else comes to mind. The sun is sunning right now. This is like perfect selfie sun. So let's go. The first on the list are melons, and this is going to include things like watermelon, honeydew, cantaloupe, jarry melons, and the list goes on. Fun fact, Texas is the top 5 producer of watermelons in the United States and accounts for about 15% of the nation's production. Now, melons are a member of the cucurbit family, which means that they are related to things like squash and cucumber. Now, cucurbits are sensitive to root disturbance, so I recommend direct sowing, especially if you live in a warmer climate. However, if you do need to transplant, you just want to make sure you do so with care, and you want to make sure the roots in the container have not become root bound. Now, melons, specifically watermelons, prefer a very sandy, loamy, nutrient dense soil. Melons are vining plants, which means they put on a lot of green growth, and at the beginning stages of their life cycle need a lot of nitrogen. So I like to amend my soil with composted chicken manure. I prefer composted chicken manure because it naturally has a higher nitrogen content than other types of compost and other types of manure. However, any type of compost will work just fine. I also will add a bit of blood meal as well as a slow release, well-balanced organic fertilizer. Let's say you're growing melons and you are seeing the tiny melons, but you notice that they fall off. This is a telltale sign of poor pollination. Melon plants will typically produce a male flower and a female flower. However, only the female flowers produce fruit. And you'll be able to tell the difference between a female flower and a male flower is because the female flower will have this tiny little melon at the base. And in order for it to be pollinated, it needs pollen from the male flower to be transferred over to the female flower. The most natural means is by way of pollinators. So things like bees, flies, even mosquitoes, they help pollinate your plants. And so if you aren't getting a lot of pollination, a high pollination rate in your plants, highly recommend making sure that you are growing flowers near your plants. However, if you don't have flowers, or maybe you still aren't seeing the best pollination rates, you can hand pollinate your plants. All you're going to do is take a Q-tip or I use an old makeup brush or paintbrush and transfer pollen from the male flower over to the female flower. The same process is true for things like squash as well as cucumber. The next I'm grouping together because they have very similar, if not exact, growth habits, and that is ginger and, wait a minute, do you say turmeric or turmeric? My whole life I've been saying turmeric, but then recently I just finally acknowledged that there was an R, like it's T-U-R, turmeric. Just sounds wrong. Ginger and turmeric. Ginger is often referred to as ginger root. However, ginger is actually a rhizome, same as turmeric. And it's the rhizome that we all know and love and eat, but it's also what you plant. Now, both ginger and turmeric, they aren't too finicky. They like a well-draining, nutrient-rich soil. I just simply amend with a bit of compost and a slow-release, well-balanced organic fertilizer. And I plant ginger and turmeric that I get from the grocery store. You just want to make sure that it is organic because non-organic produce is often sprayed with growth inhibitors that are going to inhibit growth. When picking ginger and turmeric, you want to make sure they have what's called eyes, which are these little spots on the rhizome. If you have a larger piece like this one here, you can break it off. However, if you do this, you want to make sure you give it time to self-heal and callus over. This typically happens after about 2 to 3 days. This just helps to mitigate the chances of things like bad bacteria or other funky things that might rot out the rhizome. I plant all of my ginger and turmeric in containers, and it's best to get a container that is wider than it is deep. This is because they are rhizomes, and so they have a spreading have it. And you also are going to plant the rhizomes pretty shallow. So I typically will plant them about 2 inches deep, no more than 3, and then top off with a layer of mulch. Both ginger and turmeric, they do not like a consistently moist and soggy soil. So I actually let mine dry out a bit in between watering. And I do find that even though turmeric and ginger are warm season crops, they do not tolerate direct Texas sun. So when choosing your planting location, you want to choose a place that gets dappled sunlight or indirect sunlight throughout the day, or a place that's going to get morning sunlight and afternoon shade. No bueno on the direct Texas sun. It will fry your plant. Next on the list is corn, and corn is actually a type of grass. This means that corn is incredibly greedy as it relates to nitrogen. It needs a ton of nitrogen. It needs plenty of water. So when planting my corn, I amend my soil with composted poultry manure, as well as tons and tons of blood meal, as well as a slow release, well-balanced organic fertilizer. And this is one that I have to stay on top of fertilizing with the nitrogen, with the blood meal, and I will typically do this every 4 weeks. Corn is best direct sown. That is because it has an incredibly sensitive taproot. So if you're going to grow corn, direct sow. Now, unlike plants like our melons or cucumbers, corn is actually wind pollinated. The pollen is actually on the top of the plant at the tassels, and that pollen needs to fall onto the silks in order to pollinate each of the ears of corn. And to ensure you get the best pollination, you actually want to plant your corn in sort of these square blocks to ensure that you get the most coverage in terms of pollen. The next are tomatoes, which I mentioned is one of my favorite plants to like grow in my garden. And I would say this is like the, last safe, solid month for us to grow tomatoes before the heat starts to become a problem. There are some ways that you can kind of prolong your season, which we'll get into maybe for next month's video. The problem is because it gets so hot here, once it's 95 plus degrees for an extended amount of time, the flowers of the tomato plant actually become sterile and they don't produce fruit. Tomatoes are best planted as transplants. Now, when planting your tomato plants, tomatoes is one of the few plants that you actually want to bury several inches along the stem. This is because wherever the stem comes in contact with a moist planting media, it produces roots. And this translates to a more robust and vigorous plant. Now, tomatoes are a part of the nightshade family, and they are incredibly heavy feeders. And at the beginning of their life cycle, they need a lot of nitrogen to put on their green growth. However, it is important not to overdo it with the nitrogen so you don't get a bunch of greens and no tomatoes. And so I amend my soil with a bit of blood meal, bone meal, and a slow release, well-balanced organic fertilizer. And I also amend with compost. Throughout the season, especially the peak of the growing season, these are one of the plants that I do also fertilize with a liquid fertilizer about every 2 weeks. The difference between a slow release fertilizer and a liquid fertilizer is a slow release fertilizer breaks down over time as the microbes in the soil make the nutrients readily available in the soil and to the plants, whereas a liquid fertilizer makes those nutrients available instantly. When planting tomatoes, you do want to make sure they have some type of support. Want to avoid those flimsy tomato cages that you can get at like Home Depot and Lowe's. They are pretty much useless for tomatoes. They do work well for things like peppers and eggplant, but no go for tomatoes. Maybe unless you're growing like a dwarf tomato, but your typical tomatoes, just leave them at the store. Next are peppers, and peppers are also part of the nightshade family. However, they are a lot less high maintenance than tomatoes. Peppers are best transplanted. They are pretty straightforward to grow. You just plant them in a nutrient-rich soil that's been amended with compost, well-balanced slow-release fertilizer. I will hit them up with a bit of liquid fertilizer throughout the growing season every 2 weeks. At the same time that I fertilize my tomatoes, I also just fertilize my peppers. Most pepper plants will benefit from a bit of support. However, something like a bamboo stake will work just fine. You can even use those flimsy tomato cages. Next is eggplant, and eggplant is also part of the nightshade family, so related to both tomatoes and peppers. However, I found that they are the most heat tolerant of the nightshades, at least that I grow in my garden. An eggplant is best transplanted. And similar to peppers, I plant them in a planting media that has been amended with compost and a slow release, well-balanced organic fertilizer. And throughout the growing season, I just put them on the same fertilizer routine as my peppers and my tomatoes just because it's easier. However, eggplants aren't nearly as hungry or as heavy as a feeder as something like a tomato. And similar to peppers, eggplants will benefit from some support. Next is Roselle hibiscus or sorrel, which is another one of my favorite plants to grow in my garden. Roselle is probably one of the most heat tolerant, most low maintenance, most abundant things I grow in my garden. It is a OG as it relates to summer heat here in Texas. Now, like I said, Roselle is pretty low maintenance once you get it going and you set it up right. When planting my Roselle hibiscus, I heavily amend with compost, blood meal, bone meal, and a slow release, well-balanced organic fertilizer. And that is it. I do not give it any supplementals feedings throughout the season. However, if you do find that your Roselle, the leaves look yellow or just off, there could be a telltale sign that it does need fertilizing. This is going to be especially true if you are planting in a container where nutrients are naturally going to be drained off through runoff as you water your plants. I plant all of my Roselle hibiscus in raised beds. I've also had success just planting them directly in the ground. Now you can both direct sow and transplant Roselle hibiscus. However, hibiscus needs a very long growing season. I typically will plant my Roselle hibiscus in either March or April so that they're ready to harvest in either end of September, early October. The plant will die back at the first frost. With that being said, at this point in the season, I highly recommend just planting as a transplant. Next are cucumbers. Cucumbers, I do recommend direct sowing. They are part of the cucumber family. I am in the soil with compost and a slow release, well balanced organic fertilizer. And cucumbers are going to need some type of support. I love to use A-frames. Also like using those like big heavy duty trellises that I share with you all. Where to find them in my garden essentials video, which I've linked above and below. However, there are a multitude of trellising solutions. Just know that they will need some type of support unless you're getting a bush variety. And in that instance, you won't, obviously. It's a bush. Next is that plant that I love to hate, and that is okra. Okra is related to Roselle. So like Roselle, it is an OG. You actually notice that the flowers look very similar across the plants, and it is incredibly heat tolerant. Okra is not finicky. I find that if I just plant it, it's fine. It has almost like, if you let the seeds drop, it has almost like a weed-like behavior. I was like picking up little like seedlings popping up everywhere. For okra, I feel like you can just amend the soil with compost. Like I don't even think you need a slow release, well-balanced organic fertilizer. However, it's just in my nature to add that to everything. You can either direct sow or transplant okra. You still have time in the season to direct sow because it is again, a OG as it relates to the heat. Next are cowpeas, and cowpeas is another OG when it comes to Texas heat. And that's going to include things like purple hull peas, black-eyed peas. I simply amend my soil with a bit of compost. Now they will need some type of support or trellising system. You can also still plant green beans. I feel like April's probably also, you know, the last solid month to plant green beans because similar to like tomatoes, once it gets too hot, the flowers will become sterile and just not produce any beans. But in April, you are still in the clear. If you're planting bush beans like dragon tongue beans, they don't need any type of trellis or support. However, if you are going to be planting pole beans, you will need some type of support system. I plant both types. However, I do find that pole beans are definitely more prolific. They're a lot easier to harvest. And similar to my cowpeas, they are legumes. These are all part of the legume family. They don't need much as it relates to fertilization. I find that for my green beans, I just amend the soil with compost, and I will add a little bit of a well-balanced slow release organic fertilizer. Next are sweet potatoes, y'all. Sweet potatoes is another OG when it comes to the Texas heat. I say that because I've been planting my spring garden, and I showed y'all my like tomato harvest video a few months ago, and I had huge potatoes. Did I say tomatoes or potatoes? Y'all know what I mean, sweet potatoes. And they were like bigger than my face. And I As I've been like cleaning up my my raised beds and my like in ground, I'm finding even larger sweet potatoes that have wintered over. Like they grow literally in my native soil, and I will forever have sweet potatoes in my garden. They are incredibly low maintenance. They're incredibly heat tolerant. They don't have many pests. They are a must if you live in a warm climate. And unlike your Irish potatoes where you plant the actual potato, you plant sweet potato slips. And a lot of you all asked for a video to show you how I create sweet potato slips, and that is underway. I heard y'all, I got them started. But for my sweet potato, similar to my roselle, it is a one and done. I set it up with some compost and a slow release, well-balanced organic fertilizer, and I don't do anything else throughout the season. So highly recommend growing you some sweet potatoes. Next are going to be leafy greens. And in the month of April, you can still get away with planting some slow bolting varieties of lettuce in like a shaded spot and creating little like microclimate for my lettuce. A lot of times I will plant them under the base of a large plant like a tomato plant to kind of prolong the growing season. However, naturally lettuce is not a warm season crop. However, things like chard, that is a green that does well for me in the summer. It does well for me in the winter. Unfortunately, I don't know the variety of chard I have. A lot of people ask me that because the seeds I got were from the feed store and it just said chard. You can also plant amaranth as well as Malabar spinach. Y'all warned me that it was gonna be tricky. And I have been picking up like little sprouts of Malabar spinach all throughout the bed. And each of these plants are incredibly low maintenance. I just amend the soil with compost and a slow release, well-balanced organic fertilizer. And I don't really do any supplemental feedings throughout the season. My chard has perennialized, and so it does get the benefits of additional fertilization based on the other things that I have in that particular raised bed. Next is squash, and this is going to include both summer squash and winter squash. The difference between summer squash and winter squash has nothing to do with when you plant them. You plant them both at the same time. The reason why winter squash has its name is because historically it was harvested in the summer, and because of its long shelf life, it was stored and consumed throughout the winter. But you plant them at the exact same time. For my squash, y'all know what I do. I'm in the soil with compost and a slow release, well-balanced organic fertilizer. The next are flowers, y'all. If y'all are growing vegetables, it's a non-negotiable to be planting flowers. As I've mentioned, a lot of the plants on this list requires pollination to produce fruit. And ideally, you will have already planted the flowers ahead of when those plants are actually flowering. So you will have already attracted the pollinators to your garden. So they're already there when you need them. There are a multitude of flowers that you can plant. I have this season done better with incorporating more native plants into my flowers. I'm by no means like native or bust. I'll have a variety of both native and non-native plants. And so some of the natives that I planted just this past week was mistflower, guara. Guara is one of my favorites. I think it's just a beautiful flower. And I've always planted salvias. But outside of that, I love sunflowers. It's one of my favorite flowers to plant in the summer, as well as I love gomphrena, which is another heat tolerant OG. Zinnias are also very heat tolerant. The next are your warm season herbs. And so there are so many to choose from. Some of my favorites include lemongrass, basil, mint, sage. Y'all, I planted sage in my garden. It was like one of those little 4-inch pots. It has taken up almost the entire row. It's in ground, but I actually like it because that and the oregano, which is another one you can plant, it's related to mint, so it has a very aggressive growth-like habit. But I think it's also why my sweet potatoes continue to come back, because it's created this like natural mulch, and it's kind of insulated the ground. This is Ritz. I got Ritz today. He's my ADHD dog. He literally is like squirrel, squirrel, squirrel. So I'm in the midst of my spring planting, which I'm so excited. It has been a huge undertaking, y'all. It's been several weeks in the making, but hopefully I should have it up and loaded for y'all in the next 2 weeks or so. I did have a setback. We had a very late freeze, and as a result, there were some fatalities, which I did document for you all to see. So last year, it broke my heart. I had tons of frogs. Actually, every year I have tons of frogs. I don't know where they're coming from, that migrate in my garden. I think it's because we have these random spouts of like torrential rain, and they like make like little mini ponds. Then when it gets hot, they dry up. And so they end up migrating to my garden. And last year I had dozens and dozens and dozens of frogs that I would find, like literally cooked. I said this year I was going to create a sanctuary for the frogs by creating a water source. So I'm going to be creating that, and I will do a video to show you all how to do it. It's going to be very DIY, very like inexpensively done. Just want to say the frogs, y'all. Just want to say the frogs. But until next time, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell. And remember, every black thumb ripens to green, and it all just starts with a seed.